Okay, folks, ready for another deep dive?
Always up for it.
All right, well, this time we're looking at a potential NFL trade, and this one has been making some noise online.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so apparently, Indianapolis Colts quarterback Anthony Richardson
Oh, wow.
might be on the move. The whole story news. They're predicting a trade to the Seattle Seahawks,
Interesting.
but the article doesn't really dive into why. Like,
Uh-huh.
what's the reasoning behind this prediction?
Right.
So that's what we're going to try to unpack today.
Sounds good.
Do you think this trade actually has legs?
Well, predicting NFL trades is tricky business.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Lots of moving parts.
Definitely.
I mean, it's important to look at the source
Right.
and consider, their track record and all that. But
Yeah,
this particular prediction does raise some eyebrows.
it does. Yeah.
I mean, to really get a sense of whether this could actually happen, we need to look at the motivation.
Yeah.
What would each team get out of this?
Exactly. Because at first glance, trading away a young quarterback, like Richardson seems like a pretty big move for the Colts,
Yeah.
especially since they drafted him not that long ago.
You're right. It's a bold move.
Yeah. So what do you think?
Well, it could signal a few things.
Okay.
It might mean the Colts are shifting gears,
Ill.
maybe thinking about a rebuild.
Interesting.
And trading a high-profile player like Richardson
right.
could net them a nice haul of draft picks,
Yeah.
which they could then use to restock their roster with some young talent.
Oh, okay. So it's like they're playing the long game.
Yeah, exactly. But of course, that all hinges on how the Colts front office views Richardson's potential, in the long term.
Right. Because he's still early in his career.
Yeah, lots of time to develop.
Right. And what about Seattle?
The Seahawks.
I mean, they haven't been shy about wanting a long-term solution at quarterback,
That's for sure.
but would they really be willing to give up,
Mm.
a bunch of assets
Yeah.
for a player who honestly hasn't really proven himself yet?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Richardson has definitely shown flashes of brilliance.
Oh, yeah. He's got that cannon for an arm.
Yeah, strong arm can make plays with his legs too.
Yeah.
But there's also the issue of consistency.
Right.
Can he perform at a high level week in and week out?
Mm-hmm.
That's what the Seahawks would have to weigh.
Yeah.
That potential versus the cost of the trade.
Totally, because we're talking major draft capital potentially.
Yeah, and not just that, you got to think about the salary cap too.
Oh, right.
Bringing in a quarterback like Richardson comes with a pretty hefty price tag.
True. So it's kind of like a balancing act for Seattle.
It is, yeah. It's like they're trying to solve this complex equation,
Yeah.
trying to figure out talent versus cost,
Right.
potential versus risk.
It's almost like fitting pieces of a puzzle together.
Exactly. And then you've got another layer to consider the fit.
Oh,
How would Richardson fit into Seattle's offensive scheme? Because they love to run an offense where the quarterback can move around, extend plays,
right.
make things happen outside the pocket.
Yeah. And Richardson seems like he'd be pretty good at that.
On paper, yeah, his skill set seems like a good match.
Mm-hmm.
But again, you always come back to that question of consistency.
Right.
And whether he can actually develop into the franchise quarterback they're hoping for.
So I guess the big question is, does this trade really benefit either team?
Yeah.
And does it put either of them in a better position to, actually compete for a championship?
That's the ultimate goal, right? And it's what both teams will be thinking about, when making this decision.
Oh, sure.
And that's where things get really interesting,
Yeah.
Because the Colts, they might see this as a chance to gather some valuable assets, build for the future.
Right.
While the Seahawks, maybe they're thinking Richardson's the missing piece,
No.
the guy who can take them all the way.
So it really comes down to their different perspectives and goals.
Hmm.
All right. So sum things up. We've got this interesting trade prediction. But as we've talked about, there are a lot of factors to consider.
Absolutely. It's not just about whether the trade goes through.
Right.
It's about understanding the strategy behind it.
Yeah.
Does it actually make sense for both teams in the long run?
And that's something for our listeners to think about, too.
Definitely.
So what do you think are some of the key things people should keep in mind as they kind of continue this deep dive on their own?
Well, I think it's important to look at the recent performance of both teams.
Okay.
See how they've been doing.
Right.
Then think about their current roster needs. What are their weaknesses?
Right.
What holes are they trying to fill?
Yeah, with all that in mind.
Ask yourself, does this trade actually make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Does it address the needs of both teams?
Right.
And most importantly, does it put them in a better position to succeed?
I love it. It's like a puzzle for everyone to try and solve.
Yeah. Yeah, and one that will keep us all guessing until the next trade deadline.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe the whole story news will be proven right.
I'll have to wait and see.
All right. That's it for this deep dive, folks. Thanks for joining us.
Always a pleasure.
And remember, keep those brains churning.
Until next time.
See ya.